Hi, my name's Michael Laurie, graduate student at Full Sail University. This is week 3 in legal issues for entrepreneurship. The assignment is a mock negotiation video assignment. However, I made this a real negotiation to get a better real-time practice in a life situation. I recently purchased airplane tickets from Delta Airlines. I felt that I was getting a great price. However, once I had to select seats from the seating chart, my options were limited. I wanted 2 standard economy seats next to each other, but the only seats left were these preferred seats, here in red. These seats are considered center cabin emergency exit seats, where I would be required to help passengers exit by these doors near the wings in case of an emergency. The trade-off is you have 4 extra inches of legroom, and additionally, these seats are $29 extra each. Although I disagreed with this charge, I decided to make the purchase and try to negotiate later, as time was an issue. My goal is to have the airline waive this seat fee, as I am willing and able to handle the responsibility of this seat location. I have read Wharton School of Business professor Stuart Diamond's book called Getting More: How to Negotiate to Achieve Your Goals in the Real World. This book provided great examples as to utilize particular strategies and styles in a negotiation process. Practices such as making a connection, asking questions on standards, and framing will be tools used for my real negotiation. This book gave me the confidence to make this assignment a real negotiation video. Now that I feel I am prepared, I called into the Delta Airline customer service phone line, where after going through the automated screening process, I was greeted by Dan from Tampa, Florida. It's also important to note that I notified the rep I was recording the conversation for legal purposes.
Okay, what can I help you with, sir?
I can kind of assimilate with the customer service job because I bartended for a few years, so I had to deal with drunk people, so I imagine you don't have to deal with that too often, but
Sometimes
yeah.
I do.
Yeah, so it's, well, I assure you I am not drunk today, okay? I'm not one of those people. After introductions had been made, it was at this point in the conversation where I tried to make a connection with Dan, comparing a past job to his current job. I tried to keep the mood light and friendly. The cost of the trip was pretty close within my budget, and I thought it had been great to do this experience with Delta. Because of the value that Delta can have. At this point, I made it clear that Delta had value to me and that I wanted to be a customer of Delta. I then segued into the problem at hand. The problem occurred when I came to the seating screen and my options were a little bit limited. I understand flights can fill up quickly, especially on Sunday flights. But there weren't a whole lot of options for me for seats for pricing. I just kind of wanted to make sure I understood the pricing for those seats and the requirements. So if you could just explain it to me in your words, the center cabin seats, if you could just run that over for me, please. I wanted to make sure that I understood what these seats offered and why they were extra, in case there was something I missed. Dan said the seats are considered a paid option because they are closer to the front for quicker exiting, there's more legroom available, and they are usually free to high medallion members. Although this was descriptive information, there was not much I could use to my advantage. Well, good. I'm glad you were able to clarify that for me. I just wanted to make sure I understood the offer, and in terms of my Delta experience, I just kind of since there weren't any other seats together that were remaining, I had no option and I had to select those seats. Then that's a $60 upcharge. It just seemed kind of excessive to me. I chose Delta because this is a top level airline, and I really wanted the experience. But this is one of the best airlines, if not the best. And what do you think, Dan? Do you think Delta is one of the best airlines? I asked Dan as to see his passion of the airline, to which he went on to describe his personal experiences. This shift stepped back from the problem and helped build rapport with Dan.
I'm pretty much debt-free other than my house payment, so if you're wanting to talk to somebody who wants to badmouth their company. That's not.
Yeah, that's great, man. It sounds like you really take pride in your job, and
I do. I absolutely do.
it's
I want to be the best at what I do.
it's a high sign of good professionalism, man. I like to see that in people, and it's something very respectful because Dan seemed to recognize my tactic and went back to a more in-depth description of the booking process. More important information will be disclosed.
Sure. Now, Michael, I will say this, that they did have, just so you know, you didn't have to do that. You could have waited until, every flight has seats in the, they're called airport, they're under airport control, where the gate agent will block a certain amount of seats.
Okay.
So what they do is they reserve a certain amount of seats on the aircraft. So those people, even though that when they look at it, they say, oh, there's no seats left on the plane. Well, they do have seats. They are blocked, and they are specifically for somebody in that type of situation. Now, you still probably would have been able to sit with your companion on your flights, but you would have had to wait until the actual day of the flight checked in.
This is where the negotiation is lost for me. Dan validated the seats I selected by saying I did not have to, putting blame on me. It seemed not to matter that I was unaware of the seating procedure for a plane. All right. Well, I just I just kind of feel like I'm being overcharged, and I understand that I wasn't completely knowledgeable of the seating arrangement. But when you look on the flight, and there were 2 seats left that I could select, and they were at either ends of the plane, they just didn't quite apply to me.
I completely understand your position. Unfortunately, there really isn't anything I can do about that. It's
Okay. Well, it just it just kind of stinks that I feel like I was intentionally deceived to be put in that position, and I just feel like I'm getting overcharged, and how do you feel when you get overcharged? You're kind of just like, well, how did that happen? I try to use framing in which Dan would understand what it's like to be overcharged. What type of feelings or reactions would he have? The focus was on his perspective.
I completely understand. I'm certainly not going to argue with you, and there have been times when I have overpaid for something because I didn't know. It's basically like my dad used to tell me. I'm 52 years old now, but he used to say there's things that you pay for in the long run that's just life lessons. You won't make that mistake again.
Right. Okay, Dan. Well, I was hoping we could make a negotiation or a deal, but you seem to know what you're talking about more than I do, and I'm glad you clarified everything for me. So,
not a problem.
So that concludes the negotiation video. Unfortunately, it was a failed negotiation, but I felt that I learned a lot from this exercise. I tried to use tactics of making a connection, using questions with standards, and also framing. Unfortunately, the new information that was brought to hand kind of was the leverage over me. Although I see it as kind of deceitful information because the seats were available, but they're not available to book online. So I think the passenger, where I did in this situation, felt pressured to get these seats that were together as opposed to seats that were not together. I think it's just another additional revenue stream for the airline, and this is probably something practiced by many of them. I don't know if this is known information, but I was unaware of it, and unfortunately I wasn't able to negotiate out of it. This was the second time I called into the airline, and this kind of information wasn't disclosed the first time, so kind of gets you to start thinking, if you're more persistent at it, will you be able to negotiate better? Otherwise, useful exercise. I hope you were able to learn from it, what I did right, what I did wrong, and thanks for watching. See ya.